Do you guys like my shirt? I got lobotomized at Freddy Fazbear's. The FNaF 2 movie. Or. Just giving a warning in advance, this video is going to contain spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should go do that. And don't worry, this video will still be here for you when you come back from it. Take your time, no rush. But you also might kind of want to rush if you want to see the movie and not get spoiled on a bunch of stuff. So rush at your own discretion is what I probably should say. Hello, I'm Evie, and I am your friendly neighborhood OG FNaF fan. And I'm here to explain things to you. This video will be about a main theory that I have, and also I went on Tumblr this morning after I started writing the script, and I found out that I'm not the only one that thought this, which is kind of validating. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not losing my marbles, because some people certainly did think I was in fact losing my marbles. But hey, at least I'm not the only one that is crazy, I suppose. Anyway, this video is going to be about some different theories I've seen circulating around that, ironically enough, I had the exact same thought about, and so I was writing this and I was like, okay, hell yeah, at least other people are seeing the exact same thing that I was seeing. Listen, if there's one thing about the FNaF community that we're really good at, it's pattern recognition. I'm not gonna start saying why that's the case, but not only is this going to be talking about a specific theory, we're also going to be talking about a bunch of little details that kind of help link it together. We're going very in-depth about all this because I am a FNaF lore encyclopedia. So this theory is going to be largely centered around the way that the FNaF movies are going to continue. Well, FNaF movie, the next one, but also if it does really good, I wouldn't be surprised if they made more down the line. I'm going to be giving some of my own personal takes as someone who's been obsessed with this franchise for literally half my life. What are my qualifications, you may ask? Well, I've been a fan since I was 11. I am 22 now. I also voice act in multiple FNaF fan-led projects, and overall, I have been stuck in this fandom for literally all of my formative years. You know how people joke about becoming conscious as a child? When I became conscious, I was already a FNaF fan. It's safe to say that I've been around the metaphorical block. Like Michael Afton before he pukes up robot spaghetti. That's how much I've been around the block in this fandom. As I'm recording this, the movie is literally technically 2 days old, but I did see a late night Thursday showing. It's Saturday right now, but because of that, there isn't any way to easily get my hands on the movie or even screenshots. So I'm going to be relying on really, really low res secondary sources. So just don't expect any high quality spoiler pictures. I need you guys to lock in, and I'm going to hold your hand when I say this, okay? This is going to sound bonkers, and I'm aware. I know, but I need you to trust me on this, okay? We get there when we get there. I'm going to start with my kicker of a thesis statement. Hear me out. Mike Schmidt, Vanessa, Shelly, Afton, and Michael Afton are all meant to represent three of Game Michael's arcs and general characteristics through different parts of his life. Imagine it's like he has been split into three different characters, okay? Mike Schmidt is representative of the love and guilt that Michael Afton feels towards his siblings and being responsible for crying child's death. Mike Schmidt is meant to represent that part of Michael Afton's character. Vanessa is meant to represent the era/arc of Michael wanting to do anything in his power to halt his father's legacy and put an end to him forever, ending his reign of terror. And Michael is the Michael that Game Michael was seemingly terrified of becoming, aka just like his father. You just gotta, again, hear me out. Imagine this is fully wrong. You know what? Now that I've really thought about it a bunch, I will die on this hill, okay? This one specifically. And to be honest, not to sound overconfident, but I have a feeling I might be able to sway some of you guys too. We'll see. I know a lot of people were disappointed with how Michael Afton was written in the second FNaF movie, but I'm gonna be honest, I kind of loved it. I thought it was such an interesting take, especially considering most of what we as a collective FNAF community think of him in terms of characterization is largely Fanon. It is just an interpretation of the plot beats that we've been watching play out for 11 years, and us being like, hey, this makes sense as a motive for this. This makes sense paired with this. Why would he do this? Oh, this is probably why. And it makes sense that a lot of people are really attached to that Fanon interpretation because, again, that Fanon interpretation has been around unchallenged for around a decade at this point. But FNAF, especially when it comes to the movies, they have a knack for adding things that are considered, I guess, Fanon into the canon in a way, like the plushie that goes, or. Also, not to mention, they're always with you. In here. And then Abby's like, that was so cheesy, man. And that's like meant to reference how some of the community was scared for the first FNAF movie because they were like, please don't be, we can defeat William Afton with the friends we made along the way. The FNAF community is very funny. There are so many community jokes that have made their way into these movies so far, and so it doesn't seem like a stretch to believe that perhaps the Fanon interpretation of Michael has been split into 3 distinct characters that all serve a similar purpose to the one that he served in the games, just at different points throughout his life.
Hi, I'm editing Evie. You're gonna see a lot more of me later. When I say this, I'm not saying like, oh, because there's some jokes in the FNAF movie from Fanon, that makes anything that's Fanon canon. That's not what I'm saying. And so I just wanted to say that that's not what I'm saying, because I don't make it very clear. I'm saying that the FNAF fandom, I feel like, compared to other fandoms, is very in touch with how the canon actually plays out. And so the point I was trying and not doing a good job of making is, like, thinking that there's a chance that the people behind the scenes know about the Fanon interpretations of Michael Afton, and we know that they're in touch with the community because of the jokes that they've been making in the movies, so it doesn't seem like that much of a stretch to think that they would also be in the know on how people view Michael Afton and the characterization that people tend to put on him. So that's why I'm saying it wouldn't be like out of left field to believe that that is a possibility. That's what I was trying to say.
This way, they could also take bits and pieces of different story concepts from other FNAF protagonists throughout the games, and they could assign them to different characters to intertwine the stories even more. While that aspect is not our main thesis that we're going to be talking about / arguing in this video, but think of it like a secondary thesis to this, I suppose. AKA Mike, Michael, and Vanessa being individual aspects of Michael Afton's character while still retaining certain qualities that those characters have in the games. So the movie versions, sharing some stuff with the game counterparts, even if they don't have the same role that they play in the story. I never want to assume when it comes to people's like baseline FNAF lore knowledge, because I know the people in my life that aren't diehard fans. I do have quite a few diehard fans in my life, but a lot of the people that aren't diehard fans are at the very least fans of the first movie, so I can like drag them to the second one without them complaining too much. So say I were to like show this video to my mom or to my best friend, I want them to know what I'm talking about and to have the context necessary to understand the theory. So we're just going to do a run through of the Afton era of FNAF lore timeline, and then the like more modern Vanessa era of FNAF lore timeline, because I feel like it's important for the points I'm going to be making. Good thing to know baseline. Okay, so seemingly the eldest of 3 Afton children in the games, Michael fits into the like asshole older brother archetype. We see him constantly terrorizing his younger brother, who most of the community refers to as the crying child. There are many names people throw around as the name they speculate the child having. We don't have any confirmation of things. The ones I hear most frequently are Chris or Evan, but nothing's actually confirmed, so I'm just gonna keep referring to him as the crying child, or if that's too much of a mouthful for the sentence, I'm gonna say CC, because those are just how people refer to him in the community, other than the names that people speculate. But I don't want to piss off a bunch of diehard FNAF fans, because I'm a diehard FNAF fan, and I am very easily pissed off by things, and I have a feeling I'm gonna be making some people mad later in the video, so I don't want to do that yet. So I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna call him Crying Child. I'm not picking a name. In the minigames, FNAF 4 minigames, where we see Michael terrorizing the Crying Child, if you walk around a little bit, because you can walk and explore, you can find that there is an empty girls' room in the house. So we know that when this is happening in 1983. We know because of a screen on a TV that says the year. We know that when this is happening, by 1983, Elizabeth Afton, who is William's daughter in the games, is already gone. She got. Ironically, not on purpose. Later on in the FNAF 4 minigames, you end up at a party at Freddy's, and Michael, being an asshole big brother, decides to continue terrorizing the Crying Child, and basically he and his friends pick this kid up and are like, ha ha ha, let's put him in the mouth of Fredbear. And so Michael Afton is like, hey guys, I think the little man said he wants to give Fredbear a kiss. And so he puts his little brother's skull in Freddy's mouth. The kid is crying. He's called the Crying Child. Do you know what activates spring locks? Water. So the kid's tears go into the spring locks and cause them to snap. And, you know, in the words of Toy Chica, the entire restaurant gets to see what's going on inside his head, if you know what I mean. And no, contrary to popular Markiplier meme belief, this was that the bite of 87? No, it's actually the bite of 83. We're gonna talk about the bite of 87 later, though. I think FNAF 4's gameplay is somewhere around this time, but just know that people cannot decide on who you play as. Some people are diehard thinking that they play as the Crying Child in a coma after getting his head crushed, but then other people think that it's Michael Afton, because there's this whole thing, which honestly, given the prevalence of nightmares in the FNAF movies, might make an appearance at some point. But in the books, there are so many books. In the books, around the time of Sister Location, but like not like when you play it, not that kind of timeline, but like Lizzie getting that area, it's implied that, not implied, it's full downright said that William Afton is running these weird sleep nightmare hallucination gas experiments, and most people believe that the Sister Location is there's like a way to access it through the Afton household. So a lot of people believe that it's Michael getting like secondhand gassed and being like, holy shit, man, what's going on? Honestly, for a while I was fully on boat with the Crying Child coma theory, which still holds a lot of water, but also thematically I think it's a lot more interesting to think that it's Michael Afton just kind of being tormented by his dad secondhand, and I feel like that like ties into the movie stuff and how Michael and William keep talking about like the Afton kids having specific purpose to William. That's my personal opinion, and you can think differently. We can be civil about this. FNAF theory is very open to interpretation. I can think differently than you, and you can think differently than me. You see how this works? Regardless, we know that in FNAF 4 you play as one of the Afton sons. Which one? Who knows? We don't. Or at the very least, we can't agree on it. From there, it's implied that either Sister Location or FNAF 2 comes next. Since we know that both are prequels to FNAF 1, in FNAF 2, you play as Jeremy Fitzgerald until you reach the end of the game, and then the position is taken over by Fritz Smith, and you only play as him for the custom night. Custom nights are a really common thing in FNAF, where it's like a secret night that you can get to by beating all the other ones, and there's usually like extra mechanics or like customization. So when I say anything about a custom night, that's what I'm referring to. It's after you beat the game and you can like unlock things. But you play as Fritz Smith in the custom night in FNAF 2. I always just assumed that Fritz was either Michael or William using an alias, because we learned that he was fired after one night because of tampering with the animatronics. Also, it's worth noting that Jeremy is the victim of the actual bite of 87, and it is speculated that the perpetrator is Mangle. Because of course it is. Also, I thought it was really interesting that in the FNaF 2 movie, they never say that Mangle was meant to be customizable by the kids. So I thought it was really interesting when there were so many posters and pictures of Mangle just being a fun-time animatronic. I was like, whoa, it's crazy. So those kids were wild if they just ripped poor Mangle apart like that. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Or maybe, who knows, maybe that was William being like, instead of like Aura Farm, he was like, maybe I can remnant farm enough kids get tetanus from this up animatronic. The more immortality I can squeeze out of them. It doesn't matter if no one else thinks I'm funny, because I think I'm funny. So, sister location is likely next, and we assume that Michael Afton is the one that you're playing as. He goes down to work as a maintenance tech, and here we get to see him interacting with the spirit of Elizabeth, who is possessing Circus Baby, because, as you'll remember, she was the first Afton child to get got, and it was completely an accident. By the way, the fandom has such a victim-blaming problem. I'm an Elizabeth defender, okay? Stop bullying that, like, 7-year-old girl, okay? Imagine, you're the favorite child of someone who works in a business where they make big old animatronics to entertain children. Your dad goes, hey, I made this one for you. Don't go near her. And you're like, but you made it for me. And all of the other kids can go by her, but you can't. And then no one's in the room with her, so you think, wow, oh my god, I can go see this animatronic that my dad made for me up close. And then you go up close to it, and your dad's freaky serial killer claw for snatching children comes out and then you're dead. Everyone's like, Elizabeth is such a brat, such a brat. That is a 7-year-old girl who was told that her father was gifting her an animatronic he made specifically for her, and then he never let her near it while letting all the other kids near it? That's criminal negligence. Anyway, I love having unpopular FNaF opinions. That definitely won't get me cyberbullied. I'm tired of this grandpa. Anyway, after the nights that you spend in the sister location, it's called sister location because it is in fact Michael's sister who is in the location. At the end, Michael Afton also gets his insides turned into outsides because Elizabeth leads him to the scooping room. Anyway, so he gets scooped. Basically, there's this endoskeleton called Ennard, and he goes up into Michael Afton's body and starts puppeteering him like a meat sack muppet. So Ennard, the endoskeleton, who's a amalgamate, when I say amalgamation, don't think of the actual amalgamation. That is a FNaF character. We are not talking about the amalgamation. Well, not important. But when I'm saying this, I mean it's different parts of the sister location animatronics that have, like, put on... Oh my god, they kind of put themselves back together. Anyway, but the endoskeleton goes into Michael's empty flesh suit and then pilots him around like a flesh mech. From there, even as his body starts to decay and Ennard eventually ejects himself from Michael's body like robot spaghetti, Michael still doesn't die. He is an Afton after all. Okay. Now to kind of in-game modern day, or close enough. In 2023, in the FNaF universe, a Fazbear Entertainment-themed haunted house pops up called Fazbear Frights. And, like, scrap scavengers from the business that's making the haunted house finds the FNaF building and comes across Springtrap with William Afton's decaying corpse inside. And they're like, oh shit, this thing smells! Put him in the truck! In FNaF 3, you play as Michael Afton, who is, quote-unquote, playing the role of a security guard in said haunted house. And the entire game, you're, in Matthew Lilliard's own words, mano y mano, fighting off the decaying corpse of Peepaw Springtrap. And then the game ends basically with a newspaper article being like, oh, the haunted house burst into flames. That's weird. It must have been like faulty wiring. But it's very much so implied that Michael Afton literally set that on fire and then dipped. And then William still didn't Die. You know, I always come back. So Michael Afton burns down the Fazbear Frights haunted house. It's written off as an accident, but it really is Michael trying to end William's reign of terror once and for all. And he fails. It doesn't go well. William is still, well, he's dead, but he's still kicking, I guess, technically. This might be a hot take, but personally, I think that Michael was potentially, like, on his father's side. If he is Fritz Smith in FNaF 2, the guy you play as in, like, the custom night, and, like, the one that's caught tampering with the animatronics and gets fired after one shift because of it. I personally think it's more interesting that way if he was still kind of on his father's side at that point, and then realizing how f***ed up things are during or like right before sister location, and then him being fully like, well, f*** you for FNaF 3 and Pizza Simulator. But that's just me. Also, I'm going to talk about Pizza Simulator now. I love Pizza Simulator. Now Michael Afton has a franchisee position in Freddy Fazbear Pizza Simulator, which is basically where you can make your own Fazbear establishment. Henry Emily. Yes, his last name is very likely Emily. Sorry for you moviegoers out there that don't know that that's their last name. Yeah, Charlotte Emily, Henry Emily, Sammy Emily. Don't worry about Sammy. Just don't worry about him, okay? The only ones that you really need to know are Charlotte and Henry. But Henry, who's now like in his 80s, because FNaF 3 took place in like 2023. This is like mid to late 2020s. So right about now, so if you hear about any pizzerias burning down, think, don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. Henry Emily puts out a job listing for a franchisee that can run this establishment until he's ready to enact his plan. It was not intended for Michael Afton, but Michael Afton finds it, and Henry's like, you know what, maybe this is fate. So he gives him the job, and the entire thing is all a ruse to get the animatronics and the spirits inside the animatronics into this pizzeria so he can lock that all the way up tight and burn it to the ground once and for all. No one gets out, including him and Michael. This time, as the pizzeria burns around them, Henry and Michael finally get to die and be at peace with the loved ones that were taken from them by William Afton. But not all of them are at peace, that's for sure. I was gonna say all but one, but it's really all but two. I'm getting ahead of myself. Here, we get to hear a pre-recorded audio tape from Henry that is literally, in my opinion, the hardest video game speech of all time.
For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
And I thought it was really cool that the post-credit scene at the end of the FNaF 2 movie was kind of trying to emulate that same feeling in the same style that Henry's game speech comes in. I loved it. I was losing my marbles. Then, like I said before, there are two spirits that are not at rest. And that leads us to Ultimate Custom Night, which, remember I said before, you can unlock secret 6th nights by completing all the other nights in a lot of the FNaF games. Pizza Sim is no different. Except, in this Ultimate Custom Night, you get it after you burn the entire pizzeria down. So, all of the people involved with this initial, original stage of Freddy's are all gone with it. So who does that leave us for Ultimate Custom Night? You got it! The tormented soul of William Afton being tortured for all eternity by the victims that he killed. Specifically, one of them in particular, Golden Freddy. Which spirit of Golden Freddy? Unknown. Heavily speculated. Cassidy? Who knows? Crying Child? Who knows? Andrew? Who knows? The little blonde kid from the FNaF movie who looks a lot like the PNG used for the picture. Quote-unquote, the one you should not have killed. Who knows? One of them. It's one of the Golden Freddy people that's holding him there and tormenting him for all eternity because they cannot find peace unless he has none. Which is kind of metal as fuck. This is where people consider the end of the Afton storyline, or like at least the actual living Afton storyline, with the death of Michael Afton and Henry Emily. So that's when basically all of the original characters that you follow are all completely wiped out and eviscerated. Sort of. Some people think that the end of this story arc I'm referring to is actually Sister Location, but to be honest, I think that is kind of a cop-out. And also, Pizzeria Sim is just generally a really, like, good FNAF game. And I think it's unfair to cut it out, especially considering the ending it gives us for that era of the franchise. Now, I know I said that I was going to explain the Vanessa timeline stuff to try and make it easier for when I get to the Vanessa section later, but I'm realizing that FNAF timeline lore is just so all over the place that I feel like I just need to talk it out. So, funny enough, this shocks a lot of people that just see the movie/movies, but Vanessa is technically in the game lore younger than Abby. Like, Girly Pop was born in 1997, canonically. We know that because of, like, an email that we could see that she uses in what's basically, like, an unfiction email chain that you can be a part of if you played, like, FNAF AR. What's FNAF AR? Don't worry about it. But we know that she was born in 1997. So, I think that this is really, really funny. But that makes her Gen Z. No wonder Girly was so fed up with everything all the time. In game FNAF lore, she's only 6 years older than me, which is kind of bonkers. Sometime around 2027-ish, she gets a job as a beta tester for a FNAF VR game where some code, quote-unquote code, was taken from original on-location machinery and is added to the experience. Also, what I realized I didn't add before is the reason we know her email from FNAF AR is because in the unfiction kind of emails that you're sent when you get that game, basically you're let in on some development team emails in, again, like an unfiction sort of sense where you're just meant to believe that you are getting these, but within that, Vanessa is one of the people talking because she's part of this development team. So that's how we know her birthday, and also that a nickname of hers is Ness, and that Girly really needs to be reporting this one specific guy to HR. Not even William Afton, just a man. Lewis? Lewis. I'm so sorry to anyone out there named Lewis. Isn't Daco's name Lewis? I'm sorry, Daco. This code is basically a virtual reincarnation/manifestation of William Afton trying to live on past death. It's not William Afton, but it's like William Afton's, like, conscious, I suppose? Like, he's in hell with the one he should not have killed. But, like, the murderous conscious is somehow in this machine part that the company gets in FNAF VR, which is also an absolute banger of a FNAF game. Even if you aren't playing it in VR, it's so much fun. But in that game, you are playing as Vanessa, who is a beta tester in the year 2027. So a year out, if there's any Vanessas out there who work in the game industry, if you're asked to test a game based on a string of murders where they took code from a computer that was in the location where the murders occurred, run. Get the hell out of there, Girly. During the game where you are playing as Vanessa beta testing the VR game, you can find different tapes that were left behind by a different VR beta tester. She keeps leaving you like little breadcrumbs that you can follow. Canonically, you're supposed to put all of them together because Vanessa ends up with the William Afton bug in her head. So through collecting all the tape, you release Glitch Trap, aka a digital manifestation of William Afton, into Vanessa's head via the VR equipment that she's wearing to beta test as per her game development job. Okay? Are you with me? This isn't even the theory I'm talking about. We are still in the background information. The last game I'm going to talk about that is related to this theory is Security Breach. You play as Gregory, a very suspicious lost child who is definitely not probably a robot, and also definitely not a narrative stand-in for the crying child. And also, Glamrock Freddy is definitely not a narrative stand-in for Michael Afton. In that game, there are also tapes which, when listened to, are two patients' recorded therapy tapes, and it jumps back and forth. One we know for sure is Vanessa, because Vanessa talks, and also the therapist is like, Vanessa. The other one, people can't agree on this, and I think I have a hot take. I don't know if people agree with me on this, but once again, like I've said before, I'll say it again, I'll die on this hill, specifically this one. Some people think that the other patient is Gregory, but I'm gonna get into why that's just, I don't think it's true. I think it's a cop-out. Other people think it's Vanny, aka William Afton, possessed, like, Vanessa, because she takes on the bunny persona. Vanessa, Bunny, Vanny. Most people, I feel like, believe that it's Gregory. Don't worry about it. I'm not talking about Gregory here. I can't get into all that. I don't know what the is going on with him. He's probably a robot. Alright, now that we have all that said, let's get into the actual theory itself. Please. Now, we've gone through a lot of game lore, so let's just restate our movie thesis again here to make sure we remember. Mike Schmidt, Vanessa Afton, and Michael Afton are meant to represent Game Michael's arcs/characteristics at different phases of his story arc/life. Mike Schmidt is the love he felt towards his siblings, but the subsequent guilt of being/feeling responsible for the death of one of them. Vanessa is the version of Michael that wanted nothing more than to see his father's work burnt to the ground, ending the reign of terror that he has had on so many people, and wanting to escape his father's legacy at any cost. And movie Michael Afton is the Michael that Game Michael Afton was seemingly terrified to become in the later OG Afton storyline of games, aka becoming just like his father. Alright, starting with movie Mike. We know because of the first movie that he spent a large portion of his life feeling completely and overwhelmingly guilty about Garrett dying at the hands of William Afton. He blamed himself the entire time for him going missing. He has constant nightmares of the event over and over and is struggling to deal with that soul-crushing guilt. We also see a much more forward show of the, sibling familial bond in the second movie, with him openly being like, hey, I love you, towards Abby, and then also, not to mention the fact that he was willing to put up with their aunt to fight for keeping Abby custody in the first movie. I don't need to over-explain this. I feel like his section is the easiest to parse out of the three characters we're talking about here. It's clear that he loves his siblings, the ones both dead and alive. It is also clear that he feels overwhelming guilt towards the death of his brother. Quick interjection here. Just want to put it out there. There is nothing described, shown, or even detailed, but want to put a brief content warning for mentions of suicide. It's, again, like I said, it's literally just going to be the word being like, this happened. I thought the custody battle and family suicide aspects of Mike's story in the first FNaF movie were interesting, because what if I told you that that is literally a main plot in the Security Breach Vanessa therapy tapes? A messy custody battle and also a parental suicide. Yeah, in Mike's situation, it's in a different order, but I also thought it was interesting to have both of those locked and loaded in the, Schmidt family backstory. Also, we're gonna get more into the Vanessa thing when we're in that section, because I have some good points to make that tie back into this whole theme. Regardless, like I said before, I don't feel the need to over-explain this section very much, because it is very clear that Mike in the first FNaF movie is a character plagued by grief and also a deep care and love for his siblings, and that is a key factor of how the fandom interprets post-Bite of 83 Michael Afton, realizing things went too far and feeling a never-ceasing sense of guilt out of the misplaced shows of affection that he took a few steps too far. It may not have happened in the same way, but characteristically, I feel like it fits really well. Next, movie Vanessa. Movie Vanessa being the Michael that wanted nothing more than to escape his father's legacy and tried to stop him at all costs. Okay, there's a lot of explaining here, and it's mainly because I know a lot of people clocked out after Pizzeria Sim when it comes to lore, and a lot of people brushed away Security Breach. I'm gonna be honest, Security Breach is not my favorite FNaF game, but I am also I am a complete Vanessa apologist. That's been my favorite FNaF character since she was revealed. And you know what? I don't regret it. I don't regret it one bit. I used to be embarrassed. Now I'm proudly standing on this hill. I'm a Vanessa defender and apologist. If Vanessa has no fans, I'm dead. Also, just putting it out there, I'm a voice actor who's trying to break into IRL physical acting, and people in my comments love to say that they think I look like a younger version of Elizabeth Lyle. So, I'm just saying, Blumhouse, if you need a young adult or teenage Vanessa actor for like a flashback in the third movie, my business email is in my channel bio. I say this as a half joke because I don't think that's gonna work, but you know what? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so... Now back on track. There's a lot to explain here, because so many people I feel like kind of clocked out lore-wise after Pizza Sim, and... You know how I mentioned that Game William had a daughter named Elizabeth, who got her insides scooped into outsides? Well, she was killed by Circus Baby, an animatronic that her father made for her. It is heavily implied, just through context, that Elizabeth was the favorite child and, like, the golden child. Before she died, of course. And it is clear that Vanessa in the movies is meant to be a stand-in for Elizabeth in the games. I don't feel like that's a wild, out-of-left-field take. I feel like that's pretty well understood. But there's some details that I find interesting regarding this and how I feel like she properly represents that a specific era of game Michael Afton. So in the game, you can tell that Baby is possessed based on her eye color. Her eye color is blue before she scoops Elizabeth. Elizabeth has green eyes. After Baby scoops her, Baby's eyes turn green. Okay, so that's how in Sister Location you can tell that she's possessed, because you know that this eye color change happened after she got scooped. Well, I was staring at this low-res JPEG of Baby in the FNaF 2 movie for like 20 minutes. What color are her eyes? I think they're blue.
Hi, it's Editing Evie, I'm back. I was wrong about Baby's eye color. As soon as I finished filming and started editing, I was like, I wonder if there's like any actual like high-res pictures of the baby animatronic from the movie so I could figure out the eye color. There sure was! Her eyes are in fact green, which brings up some questions for later in the theory. Being able to clearly see in high res the fact that Baby's eyes are in fact green brings up some interesting points when I get to the Vanessa section. But I just wanted to come in here and be like, hey, you don't have to run to the comments and be like, Baby's eyes are actually green in the movie, you dumb. I know now. I'm aware. Okay, you don't have to do that. We'll get to that later. Anyway, just wanted to say, I know.
Okay, what is interesting about Vanessa being a stand-in for Elizabeth in the movie is that, in my opinion, I feel like she also is very heavily implied to be a stand-in for Elizabeth in the games. Like, almost being a living vessel for the memories of Elizabeth being forced onto her, making her easier to, like, manipulate and control by William. Oh god, therapy tape time. In the Security Breach therapy CDs, you hear a therapist talking to Vanessa about her awful family life and really, really icky upbringing. When it's mentioned, she almost reverts back to like a childlike state, which as a trauma response makes sense. Trust me, I would know. I'm not going to expand on that any further. But there are just a lot of details that lead me to believe that it's not actually her that is having this trauma response. It's the memory of Elizabeth being forced onto her, hearing about the memories, making her emotionally vulnerable enough where she's more easily controlled. We're gonna get more on that in a second, but the therapist and Vanessa talk about her father, Bill, and the messy divorce in which he got full custody of her, which led to her mother killing herself. It is implied that, like, Vanessa, potentially Elizabeth, but the memory of Elizabeth being implanted into Vanessa, was coerced into testifying against her mother in court, likely threatened if she didn't.
Hi, go ahead. Sit down. I don't know you. What happened to... Oh, we'll get to know each other in no time. I've read through all your files, so I feel like we've been talking for weeks. I feel like I know your dad, too. Bill, right? Your dad's name was Bill? I'm sorry, what did you say? I try to do what I'm supposed to do. I know you do. Your supervisor notes that you follow instructions perfectly. Your dad made you follow instructions, didn't he? I'm talking about the custody battle between your mum and your dad. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Do you want to talk about how that felt? I suppose I don't need you to tell me it felt bad to have a parent scare you into saying things that weren't true. He manipulated you. It wasn't your fault. It's really sad, but it's common for one parent to use their child to hurt the other parent. I know your mum, after she lost the custody case.
I was supposed to be a good girl.
What happened to her had nothing to do with you, even though it was your testimony that did it. Was that testimony true? No, I didn't think so. But your dad is to blame, not you.
Then,
Apparently, the IT department has put together a pretty lengthy report chronicling non-job related communications that have been coming to your computer. But what bothers me about what I read is that the messages you're getting seem very manipulative in nature. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I get a lot of messages from friends.
You know who I'm talking about. Why won't you open up about it? What you might not know is that this person who's been sending you messages has been hacking into your personal files too. These are the same files I have here. These files are full of details about your life. Do you know what that means?
I'm not in the tech department. I just type on the computers.
I know that. But what matters here is that this person who is contacting you knows a lot about you.
Lots of people know more than I do. Sometimes I need to listen.
then,
It looks like you were shopping for a costume. You purchased some fake fur material. What are you gonna make? What was that? Did you say the costume is a secret? Why is that?
I can't talk about this. He said he would always be watching. He could be here, or there, or anywhere in between.
Are you talking about your dad? Have those feelings come up again? I hate sounding like a broken record, but this is something you really need to resolve if you're ever gonna be happy.
I have. I compartmentalized him. He's locked away.
No, that's not what I mean. You can't just ignore an issue. You have to face your memory of the experiences and process them so you can let it go. So you don't get triggered anymore. You can use a sort of self-dialogue to release these things.
I don't like doing that.
also, it is interesting how she talks about him and doing what she's supposed to, since that is largely what Vanessa in movie 1 is doing by hanging around Mike until she breaks the cycle and fights back against William's abusive control to help Mike. This is what I'm talking about when I say that the FNaF game protagonists have bits of their own stories from the games pulled in to fit their movie continuities, but because, especially with the, like, later on characters, they're meant to be parallels of earlier on characters. So in this, it feels like it's like Vanessa reliving Elizabeth's memories, and then those memories are then put onto Vanessa actually in the FNaF movie where she's a stand-in for Elizabeth. Does that make sense? Basically, in the movie, they skip her being the middleman and just straight up make her that daughter he was forcing onto game Vanessa. You may be thinking, how the did you get to that conclusion? Well, there's another tape I didn't mention, but also this is where we get a little, scandalous.
What do you think? Still not talking? All right. Well, then let's do this. Why don't we talk about the research I did in your past, shall we? Some therapists think they should only focus on information they get from their clients, but some therapists, like me, think it's helpful to find out about clients from other sources. Want to guess what I found out when I looked into the tragedy of your past? All that stuff about your parents? You aren't even going to look at me? Fine. You can look at the floor all you want. But it won't change the fact that none of what you said in your file about your parents was true. The truth is, you had great parents, a great childhood. Why did you lie?
Full transparency, this lines up so well with the Vanessa storyline, despite being from the other patient's recording. Honestly, this specific one is what leads me to believe that both patients are Vanessa, but, like, one as herself and the other in the, like, Vanny possessed mentality. Like, if they were talking about Gregory, they wouldn't be talking about his great childhood and great parents. He's implied to be homeless, and also he's most likely a robot. Also, you don't talk about a child's childhood when they're still in childhood. I know people aren't gonna agree with me, but I will once again die on this hill, this one specifically. All of this is to say, I feel that Vanessa in the games is having the role of Afton's daughter, Elizabeth, from the games, forced onto her. So her filling the role of Elizabeth in the movies honestly makes a lot of sense. I know people were like, what the fuck, where's Elizabeth? I feel like this checks out, especially based on the things that they've pulled from Security Breach Vanessa to put into FNaF movie Vanessa. Tiny Vanessa finding Circus Baby in her father's workshop further cements this in my brain as being very likely, if not just canon in the movies. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out in the third movie that Vanessa's original name was Elizabeth and that she changed it to Vanessa to try and distance herself from her father more. So she wouldn't be associated with him like, oh, huh, wow, that's William Afton's daughter Elizabeth. I also personally think that Shelly might have been her mother's maiden name. So if she was trying to, like, not associate herself with her family, choosing a different first name and then taking her mother's maiden name instead of her dad's name would make sense, and Vanessa Shelly is the name that we hear for her in the first movie before we know she's an Afton.
We're gonna be talking about baby's eyes now. So it turns out, like I said before, they are in fact green. So, as you could probably guess, baby having green eyes in the games signifies the fact that Afton's daughter is dead. Now, this doesn't necessarily change my theory. If anything, I feel like it adds a little bit more fuel to the fire. No FNaF pun intended. Now, when it comes to Vanessa's movie character, I speculate that she either did die as Elizabeth and was brought back as a robot by William Afton out of either regret or grief or, like, being like, hey, she didn't serve her purpose yet, because you know how there keeps being mentions of the Afton children having specific purposes that they are meant to fulfill. If that is the case, there is potential that she was brought back to life as a robot, but like Charlie Emily style, you know? Fourth closet style, if you know what I mean. Another option, which I feel like fits really well into game Vanessa's story, is that after Elizabeth died, maybe William kidnapped a young enough child where it would be unlikely for anyone to be like, that's not your kid. Because, you know, a lot of babies look very similar. Maybe he kidnapped a young enough child where there wouldn't be any visual/physical differences to be noticed immediately, and then raised that child as his own. Either fit thematically, and with one option, it happened to the other Fazbear Entertainment founder's daughter, and for the second option, it seems to be paralleling Vanessa's therapy CDs in Security Breach. I am nearly certain that one of these two options is going to be revealed as her movie backstory. And the reason I feel like I can add this in late and not have it negatively impact the theory, and in my opinion, I think it honestly kind of adds to it, is that regardless of whether Vanessa is William Afton's biological child, or a kid that was kidnapped young and raised or brainwashed to think that she's his daughter, or even a robot like Charlie Emily in the books, it doesn't change the fact that in this canon, where a William Afton is still around and just recently got spring-locked, she is seen as an Afton by him. Also, I feel like it's very in character for William if Elizabeth is separate from Vanessa. If, say, Elizabeth died, it feels very in character for him to be like, okay, either robot route, making a new one, or stealing someone else's kid and being like, well, this is my kid. And if she was young enough, there's a good chance that she would have never known and would have just been like, yeah, that's my dad. Also, what also kind of adds to this is the fact that in the FNaF 2 movie, we know that it's 1982, and we know that it's before 1983 that Elizabeth dies to baby, but in the movie, we see Charlie die and it's 1982, and specifically, Vanessa is there, because Henry mentions her by name as Vanessa, and not like, oh, William's daughter. Because they could have gone the, like, Henry just telling Mike, like, oh, William's daughter, and him connecting the dots, but Mike specifically is like, oh yeah, I heard all about Charlie, and her best friend Vanessa. You know, he says that to be like, why didn't you tell me? So that implies that Henry said her name, like, specified her by name. And based on the timeline, I'm gonna assume that she's probably somewhere between 8 and 10 there. At that point, like, between 8 and 10, so still very young. I don't know. Any of the routes I've mentioned, I feel like could be canon, but thematically, I feel like there's gonna be a bait and switch of like, no, she's not his biological daughter. He made her either into a robot based on his dead daughter's memory, or he just stole a child and was like, well, you, mine's gone, I need a goddamn replacement, and then raised her as his own. Regardless, she was raised in Afton, which is very unfortunate for her. Anyway, all of those potential theories that come up now that we know that baby's eyes in that one scene are green, all of the theories I feel like fit really well still within this, because even though it seems like Vanessa is a stand-in / replacement for Elizabeth, that doesn't mean that she can't fill one of Michael Afton's roles within the narrative.
Also, maybe I'm wrong, I've only seen the movie once and I'm going off of this one time I saw it. William never refers to Vanessa as Vanessa. He just doesn't refer to her with a name. Or he says, like, oh, you were my favorite. His favorite, but he never refers to her by name, so that also leads me to believe that her name used to probably be Elizabeth and that she changed it in the movie canon. As for her representing a part of Michael, as per our thesis statement, she fits the role of Michael Afton's character arc from sister location to like pizzeria sim, aka recognizing that her father is a monster and doing everything she can to end his legacy. Like I said before, I'm a Vanessa apologist and have been since FNaF VR. And this is my professional Vanessa enjoyer take on all of this. She's my favorite FNaF character, and Baby has been my favorite animatronic since Sister Location first came out when I was like 13. So I am absolutely loving the FNaF movies' take on Vanessa's character and her being the Lizzie equivalent in the movie. I love it. I love how they're portraying Michael Afton in the movies. I love how petty and greasy and slimy this man is, and that they're using game Michael's implied worst fears as the basis for movie Michael's whole character. In the movie, Michael Afton is actively trying to continue on and secure his father's legacy. He goes as far as to lead a crew of the ghost hunting show, literally to certain death. Also, I think it's really funny how petty he is towards Vanessa trying to leave home for good and taking a stance of opposition against William. I saw a Tumblr post, I'll put it here, where someone was like, someone's mad he's not evil dad's favorite, and it killed me. Especially if this Michael Afton is also implied to potentially have been accused of not being William's biological kid, like in Sister Location, in between cutscenes, you know, Clara, the baby isn't mine. Dude is almost desperate for his father to see him as the golden favorite child, while also trying to beat the bastard allegations. All while Vanessa literally shot him and went against his orders, and is like trying to actively process the abuse and trauma he put her through while still being implied to be the favorite. God, that's so game Michael and Lizzie core. I don't know what else to say. And I think it's so funny. In the movie, I literally laughed when he went, break their bones. It tickled me. It tickled me. I thought it was funny. He said, get their asses, Freddy. And I think that's really funny. I think he may have a turnaround, like it's implied that he did in the games, realizing his father's a monster and then turning against him, the same way that Vanessa's currently doing in the FNaF movie. But I have a feeling it isn't going to be that simple of an arc for movie Michael. But like Vanessa in the therapy tapes and the first FNaF movie, Michael seems to be dealing with that same compulsion to do anything to help William, likely as a trauma response out of decades of fear. It's implied from the nightmare sequence that William seems to be a fan of the double whammy physical threat and love bombing combo meal. So it wouldn't surprise me if Michael is just like lost in the sauce, because it seems like William went like so hard on making sure that his kids knew that they had specific roles that he needed them to follow, that he had plans for them as his children, as his creations. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Michael's just like so lost in the sauce that he doesn't even realize that shit's as fucked up as it actually is, because that also is a trauma response. And him being so lost in the sauce that he doesn't even realize has potentially turned the movie iteration of him into what the game version of him feared becoming the most. Just like another William Afton. All of this is to say that I think I'm gonna call them currently the big three. I feel like the big three should count as like Mike, Vanessa, and Abby. But for right now, for the sake of this, I'm gonna say the big three is Mike, Vanessa, and Michael. I think the big three are all meant to relate back to Michael Afton because we play as him so goddamn much in the games. especially the like earlier games where it is Afton family centered, and the movies are currently Afton family centered. Like, yeah, Vanessa's there, but like I explained in detail, she in the games was likely just a stand-in and kind of like a vessel for William to project the memory of Elizabeth onto her to get her to do what he wanted her to do more easily. Because, hey, if she thinks that's her dad and she's scared of him, she's gonna go, okay, I'll f***ing kill people. Holy shit, you know? It just makes sense. I hope I'm explaining this right, because to me, it makes sense. It makes sense. All of this is to say that, in conclusion, I believe that the big three I just described are all meant to represent different arcs / characterizations of Michael Afton within the games, and different phases of his life in which he felt different ways towards the things happening around him. They line up with the main 3 arcs that we see Michael go down. And I think it's so goddamn interesting. As soon as he came on screen, I'm like, that's gonna be Michael Afton. And people called me crazy. I was like, you know what? I think we are gonna get more Afton family. And you know what? People called me crazy. Guess who's f***ing crazy now? Well, actually me. I've been talking about FNaF lore for an hour and a half to my camera. Anyway, if you've made it this far in the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, please comment what your favorite FNaF game is, and if there's anything that you don't agree with in this video, commenting on a small YouTuber's channel really helps boost the algorithm. And also, if you want to see more of me, I am going to be uploading more videos soon. I'm just so normal about FNaF. I'm so normal about FNaF, guys. I'm so normal about FNaF. I couldn't find a better way to hold this up. I made this, by the way. Look at the back of it. There's so much duct tape. This was made for under $3. It's a dollar store mask, ice cube, circle lid things, and then garden wire and felt. And then some foam clay. I almost said bond clay, like from One Piece. Or.